Well, with Redfall coming out this week, it brought a lot of questions, a lot of arguments, a lot of discussions about the importance of 60 frames per second compared to 30 frames per second. And yes, this game comes out May 2nd, but are you even still excited for it? What's good, everybody? This is Blue Satire, and today it's another discussion board because with the news of Redfall being 30 frames per second at launch and a 60 frame per second patch coming out later at a later date, a lot of people have been pretty upset that they aren't getting their games at 60 frames per second. I posed a question on Twitter, the importance of 60 frames per second and 30 frames per second. And I want to know how y'all feel about the importance of it. Does it matter? What really matters in gaming? Is it the frames per second, the graphics, or is it the fun and if the game actually works? So first, please make sure you like and subscribe. And if you got any more questions or discussions you want to have here, please like, subscribe, and comment and let me know what you think. And again, I don't think I'm right or wrong. It's my opinion, but I want to hear what everybody else thinks. And I feel like people don't understand that there can be multiple things that are true when it comes to a conversation or when it comes to a situation. You can believe one thing and still another thing be true about that. And let's talk about it. Let's get into it real quick. So if you're in the gaming space on Twitter, you know that everyone has been complaining about 30 frames per second in gaming and that they shouldn't deserve that. And I want to know what y'all think. We're in a generation of gaming where we have Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 and these high-end PCs. And you see games like Jedi Survivor not performing as well on PC, but as well as some issues on the console as well. You have games like The Last of Us Part 1 or 2. A lot of PC ports have not been doing well. A lot of games have not been running at 60 frames per second right off the bat. We go back to last year where there was a big controversy about Gotham Knights not running at 60 frames. And I think the main issue for people is that they're paying $70 for games and not getting the full thing. And again, gaming back then was still expensive, but I understand when you have a system that markets itself as the strongest system, but yet Redfall is dropping and it's only gonna be 30 frames per second right off the bat. And the real problem was the lack of transparency with Bethesda and their fans. Like, why didn't we know this at jump? You showing footage of 60 frames per second gameplay, but now we gotta wait. Now, me personally, again, like I always say, 30 frames per second is cool for me because I play games that never really are in 60 frames per second. I'm a Nintendo Switch head. I love retro games, which actually a lot of retro games wasn't 60 frames per second. But I'm a believer that as long as the game runs well and it's optimized, I really don't care if it's in 60 frames or 30 frames or it has occasional dips. I just want the game to be fun. I want the game not to be trash and poorly optimized. But there are people that believe that it is 2023, there should be no game that's below 60 frames per second. How do y'all feel about that? A lot of people had their opinions on that, and many feel like in this day and age, there should be no game that goes 30 frames per second. And I don't know. I do believe that with these next gen systems that there should be a focus on getting those games to run as best as you can. They should be optimized before they come out. And if 60 frames per second is supposed to be the standard, then they need to be at that because that's why folks bought these systems. That's why folks paid $600 for these systems. I also don't believe that you should judge the past systems games compared to this. Like, one argument I saw was people saying that everybody's making fun of Redfall. I bet they won't say the same thing about Tears of the Kingdom. Well, first and foremost, we all know that Tears of the Kingdom won't be in 60 frames per second. We played Breath of the Wild on the Switch that came out in 2017. That was basically a Wii U game. Who is expecting Zelda to be in 60 frames per second, and who would be on Twitter mad except for people that want to pick and choose and have a competition on who is failing and who is winning? Nobody cares on the Switch that this game is not at 60 frames per second. It's the most anticipated game of the year. Their price tag was raised, but again, I don't think anybody was expecting 60 frames per second. They just expect a game that's gonna be good, and it's gonna be good. Like, there won't be no argument, so I don't see why people can be mad that people aren't mad at that when it's running on an old ass system. I'm sorry. Now, in the future, when the Switch makes a new system, they definitely need to prioritize making games at a higher level because that's been the complaint the past couple years. Not my complaint. I don't care as long as the game is running well and it's fun, I'm gonna buy it. But at this point in time, it's only right that Nintendo starts optimizing their games and raising the bar a little bit and making their games 60 frames per second. Now, there are games that do run at 60 frames per second already on the Switch, but those are the games that really need it. Mario Kart, Smash Brothers, Splatoon 3, all of those run at 60 frames, but to try to compare Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdoms to Jedi Survivor and games that are on next-gen consoles and high-end PCs to a game on an old console, I don't think that's fair. But how do y'all feel about that? Either way it goes, from the questions I asked on Twitter and just walking around, there are people that still to this day say that they really can't tell the difference. There are people that say as long as the game is fun, I'm cool with it. But there are people that say I can't play in anything below 60 frames per second. Ever since I started playing PC games and things like that, I just notice it. Me, I kind of notice it, but it really don't bother me. My eyes can adjust. But that's all I have for you. Redfall is coming out. I want to know if you're going to be picking it up or you're going to give it a chance even though it's 30 frames per second. I will be playing it because I want to see if it's still worth playing. Now, the only problem is that Redfall has a lot of issues that I think kind of just messed it over. It just, the always online, only the host can save the progress. That's kind of going to be a downer for me, which makes me feel like I need to beat this game in one go with my friends to enjoy it. But how do y'all feel? Are you gonna be buying this game? Let me know. But the real question I'm asking is, how do you feel about 30 frames per second versus 60 frames per second? Is it a necessity for you? Do you need it? Is it unacceptable for any game to come out now that's not 60 frames per second or above? Tell me how you feel in the comment section. And again, I don't think I'm right in any way or wrong. That's just my preference and that's just how I like the game. I don't care as much. And if you think something different, if you like 60 frames per second, that's cool, I understand. You should complain if you bought a system that's supposed to give your games that type of performance. But that's all for me. I appreciate y'all for listening. Y'all have a good one. Bye-bye.